There we go. So I'm so excited today to be joined by the one and only. Every time I speak to this lady, she looks as glamorous and fab as always. Let's say hello to Sue Holderness. Hello.
Hello. Glamorous and fab, I like. Thank you very much.
First of all, how are you doing during this lockdown? What are you doing to keep busy?
Well, it's all been very stress-free until this morning when we tried to get on to this. I am completely IT hopeless. And the fact that we're now doing this is a sort of miracle. And in fact, conk out at any minute. But no, I suppose I shouldn't really say this, but we're rather enjoying it. You know, we've got this lovely sunshine. I've got a nice garden. I'll show you the garden. This garden. See, I've got a garden that we can go and sit in. And apart from the night times when I wake a lot and worry about the people who haven't got as happy a life as we've got, it's quite calming and soothing. And I'm terribly busy. You think that there's no work, obviously, and you'd think that really one would be stressing about that. But I haven't got a minute in the day. We get up at I get up at 6:30. My husband gets up at 5:30 to see the sun come up at 6:20. I get up at 6:30. We have breakfast at 7:00, and then the day's just packed with activity. I've gone through pretty much every drawer in the house, cleaning the garage. We do the Joe Wicks exercise at 9:00. Yeah. All our family are doing. I then do a bit of Davina, her workout. I'm just getting so fit. Up and down the stairs 20 times a day. And we've gone through all the food cupboards. We had delicious lamb at the weekend where we had 2016 lamb gravy. Absolutely delicious. I have thrown out quite a lot of old stuff. It's amazing. We came across some strange sort of bottles of seedy things that said 2009. And I discovered it was when my daughter was going through a Persian phase, and they have afraid have gone in the bin. But we're trying not to throw anything away.
I mean, Sue, I've interviewed you numerous times, but I wanted the opportunity today to share an interview with people that are at home, want to watch something different, the people in the Only Fools and Horses page as well. So I wanted to go back to the very beginning for you. So being an actress, was that always your ambition? Did you know from such a young age that this is what I wanted to do as a career? This is what I'm gonna work towards?
Now what? I've got a phone call coming in. Can I just decline it and I won't lose you?
Yeah, of course. That should work.
There we are. Okay. Well, you know, I really didn't know what I wanted to do when I was a kid. I thought I was going to be a dancer, and then I thought I was going to be a horse rider. And then I had one of those wonderful teachers at school called Miss Wakefield, who put me into the school play. And I'd never done any drama. It was called Antigone, Sophocles' version of Antigone. And I suddenly discovered that I really liked being somebody else. And she said, you know, why didn't you think about applying for drama school? My parents were very nervous about that, of course. Who wouldn't be? And I said, I was sure I wouldn't get in. The odds were very slim of getting into the drama school. But once I got into Central, my parents were remarkable. They stuck behind me, came and saw everything I did. And I've just been terribly lucky. I've loved it from the moment I left drama school, which is 1970. That's 50 years ago. And really, I still can't get over the fact I've been as lucky as I have. I've had never more than 3 months without knowing what the next job is going to be. And I think that if I had suffered from terrible out of work syndrome, I may not have stuck with it, because when I'm out of work, I get terribly depressed. Apart from at the moment, when I've got a lovely job I know coming up, which gives me the confidence to think, we can stick this out without too much bother, because I've got the lines for the new series to look at, and I know it's going to be fun. It's going to be a new job that I love, and so this business of living in isolation is okay for me. I'm living with a husband I love in a house I don't mind. If I'm upstairs, he's down. If he's down, I'm up. We don't have to get on top of each other, and we have our meals together. It's really terribly friendly.
Well, I was going to say, you know, going from you studying to be an actress, where did that break come from for you? When did you get that first opportunity?
Straight away, I went straight up to Manchester 69 Theatre Company, and I went into production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, which led to playing the lead in a rock version of Othello called Catch Myself. And then I did Peer Gynt with Tom Courtenay, and then I got into children's. But obviously, the break that changed my life was I was in fact being my first child, and I got the call saying, would I be interested in the idea of doing a day's work on it, playing the wife of the dodgy second-hand car dealer, Boise, and I knew a bit. Didn't know much about Marlene, but I knew that whenever anybody said Marlene, I always remember Marlene. And so I thought, I can play this Cockney tart. This is fun for one day. And John Sullivan didn't really want the character to be in the show. He wanted her indoors character, like Cole. He wrote that.
Oh, we're losing you a little bit there.
Oh no, it's probably an aeroplane doing it. We haven't got many of those at the moment. So anyway, when he saw the scene that he'd written, he said, he rang me up a couple of weeks later and said, we weren't going to have her back, but we love her. Marlene's going to be a part of the show from now on. And it obviously changed my life dramatically.
I think what I noticed as a fan of the show is, and it's rare in sitcoms and comedy shows, is the chemistry with not only just, say, the main two characters, but with everyone. Del Boy and Marlene will have that comedy timing. Boise and Del Boy, Marlene and Trigger. Every character had that. They were able to bounce off each other, and it's so rare to get every single cast member have that connection with the other actor or actress. So, would you say that made it easier for you to deliver the amazing comedy that the show did because of the connection that you had as actors?
Well, there's no question that the thing that really made the show for all of us was the scripts. John Sullivan's scripts were just genius, weren't they? The fact that we all came from theatre backgrounds and we'd all been knocking about for quite a long time, and we all instantly liked each other. I think that does show on the screen. The chemistry between, obviously, you can see quite clearly when Marlene first appears in the show that she and Del Boy have got a past. They've had a canoodling relationship of some sort, no question about it. And would he be allowed today to pinch my bottom as regularly as he did? It might be banned. And the sad thing is that Marlene always enjoyed those moments. She knew they were awful, but she giggled with joy and the memory of their little fling that they'd had together. So, I think that the reason the show goes on being as much loved as it is by every generation is because it's good, clean fun, isn't it? I think audiences got to know and love those characters, and they cared about them when things went wrong. They minded that Marlene couldn't have children, and they minded that Cassandra lost her baby, and they minded that when Rodney was stuck in the lift with Del Boy, everybody cared about him and how unhappy he was. And so John Sullivan so cleverly could write scenes that obviously made you laugh. He's known as a comedy writer, but he had no trouble making you cry as well.
And the thing with the show, when you joined, it was well established, it was popular, but over the years, it became something on a different level with more so the Christmas specials. For you, when was it that you realized this is going to go on to be an iconic show? Was there a moment where you thought this is going to really grow and grow and grow?
I don't think any of us could possibly have guessed how long it would go on and how each new generation coming along would find it and discover it for themselves and find it entertaining. You see 7, 8, 9-year-old children will come up and say how much they love it, and they're watching characters with phones the size of bricks and with those great video recorders. It's history for them, but it still is making them laugh today because the comedy is I think it's timeless. It's talking about the human condition, and that doesn't really change, does it?
Now, initially in '96, when they had the trilogy where Del Boy and Rodney became millionaires, people thought that was the show over and finished. Now, I know on the Appreciation Society, you sometimes see people pop up with a question, and a lot of people seem to think that the show should have stayed there. However, for me as a fan, I think some of my favorite episodes were the ones that they brought back. If They Could See Us Now and Strangers on the Shore, that was some of my favorite episodes. So, what are your thoughts on the decision to actually bring the show back and have them actually lose all their money? Do you think it was the correct thing to do?
Well, a lot of fans didn't like those three, and they said, why didn't you leave it at that wonderful moment of the boys walking off into the sunset with their money? But since then, people's opinions have rather changed about that, because the thing you saw in that final episode when they were rich is they weren't actually happy. I mean, Del Boy wasn't happy with his snooker table and his huge lawn and his massive house. He missed the life in the market. He missed the Nelson Mandela House. He missed his old friends. So I think it was absolutely right that John brought them back into the real world, and clearly Del's hopeless with money, always was. It wasn't difficult for him to lose it, and I think that seeing them all back together, that gang that had grown up together, was terribly moving, and I'm very pleased that he did that, and I think most people, most of the fans now, are
Yeah.
glad that those 3 episodes exist.
Now, the thing which I love about, especially you and John, is I've interviewed loads of people over the years, and if they played a character, they like to stay away as such. You know, that was a moment of their life. They played the character, they move on from it. But both you and John, you really live the characters. When I met you at the Sir David Jason event this year, it was like you were meeting Boycie and Marlene. You get into the character, which is really nice. Do you enjoy being able to kind of be Marlene in everyday life at times?
Oh God, I certainly don't do it in everyday life, but whenever we've got a convention or that wonderful meeting with David, wasn't that fun that weekend? Whenever we are there as Boycie and Marley, and of course people want to see us as those characters because that's why they're there. They're fans of Only Fools and Horses. It's very nice to get back to them. You know, if John Sullivan had lived and we'd been able to go on doing the show, I would like to have been playing Marlene when she had her Zimmer frame and was doddering around. I'm very, very sad to wave goodbye to her. But because of her, you know, I've gone on and I'm back with David again, playing Mrs. Rossi and Still Open All Hours. And it's very lovely to come back and play with. And I'm about to do a new series, which I'm sure I've been offered the new part because of Marlene. Every part I get, I'm offered because basically people know me because of Marlene Boyce. What's not to like about Marlene Boyce?
I mean, and with Only Fools and Horses, the show's very much kept alive by the work of Perry and the Society. What they do is incredible. And I first met you in 2009 when I attended a convention, and over the years, it's just grown with the amount of people that are part of it now and the events that they put on. So for you to be part of the society and get to attend these Comic Cons to meet people and have so many people working on a team that are as passionate about the show as you are, is that nice to be part of?
It's extraordinary, really,
Yeah.
because we know all the guys now who work for Perry and girls and boys and now kids. You know, the next generation, they're all there helping set the stalls up and helping to look after the crowds when they come. And we are a bit like a big happy family because it's really lovely when you get back together. Everybody's got the same thing in common. We're all there to worship at the pedestal of John Sullivan because he was the man who made it all possible. But now, of course, I worship at Perry's pedestal too because I think he's amazing. He's
Yeah.
kept the show alive. He loves it with a passion. And you know, we also now have the Only Fools and Horses, the musical, and who'd have thought that that would be the success that it is?
Yeah.
When we heard about it, I thought I'm not going to like this at all. I don't want somebody else to play me or to play all those other characters. I went along with great misgiving, and it was one of the most wonderful nights in the theatre I've ever had. The girl playing me is simply wonderful, Samantha Seeger. All of the cast, they're not playing absolute imitations of us, but they've got the essence of those characters. And it's a show that's been made with such affection. You know, the writers, the creators, Jim Sullivan, of course, John's son, who's had a very large hand in this. They've done it with just great love, and the audience, when they hear any lines that they recognise from the show, just whoop with joy. And when you know, we all need something to cheer us up at the moment, and that's the thing. I hope they bring it back to the West End as soon as possible.
I mean, the great thing for us as fans, obviously, Only Fools and Horses had finished, and then we heard there was going to be a new sitcom, in that being The Green Green Grass. Now, I watched that box set over and over again because I honestly feel it's one of the best comedies, especially some of the scenes when Marlene's learning a massage course and then uses Mrs. Kate Worthy's book on self-defense on Boise and ends up breaking his legs. There's so many comedy moments. So when John came to you and approached you and said, "Look, I've got this idea," what were your initial thoughts? Because you must have had a lot of trust in John because of the success that he's had with Only Fools.
We were. I can't tell you what it was like. We were touring in a play by Neil Simon called London Suite, and it was going to Brighton. And John said, "Come round. I'd like to have a word with you." And so we went round to have tea with him, very excited and interested. And he said that he'd been wanting for a long time to do a spin-off about Boycie and Marlene and couldn't think quite what it would be. And then he had this idea after he'd been to a party at John Challice's house for his 60th birthday. John Challis and Carol, his wife, live in this amazing property in the heart of the countryside. And he saw John Challis welcoming his guests to his home and being rather grand, and suddenly pictured Boycie and Marlene buying a massive house in the country and trying to be Lord and Lady of the manor. And he just couldn't think of any reason why that could possibly work. Why would the Boyce family leave London? And then he was watching an old episode of Only Fools that featured the Driscoll brothers, Peckham's answer to the craze. And he thought, that's it. Boycie's grassed up the Driscoll brothers because they're now in prison for life. They're getting out. They've got to escape. So we'll send the Boyce family to the countryside. So we found ourselves sitting in John Sullivan's flat in Brighton and him saying, this is my idea. What do you think about a spin-off series starring Boycie and Marlene? Well, our initial reaction was just overwhelmingly, gloriously happy at the thought of it, staggered and surprised, but really happy. And then you start to get the nerves because very few spin-offs work. And so when we started it and we did the pilot, we thought, well, this is lovely. Please, God, they let us have a series. And we got a series, and then we said, please, God, let them give us another one. So we got 4 series out of it, and we had, honestly, it's the happiest job I've ever done. It was being down there in the countryside. A lot of it was filmed around John Challis's actual house. And our wonderful crew, who were the Only Fools and Horses crew by and large, but we just had the most wonderful time, and it was done with great affection. And, there was a time they did ask for series 5. I can't tell you how excited we were about series 5. And John had ideas for the episodes for series 5. And then suddenly all the cutbacks happened at the BBC and they didn't go on. We always thought that maybe it would come back because we're all still alive, which is saying something. But of course, not having John there as the writer, it was impossible to bring it back. But we were very grateful. We got 4 years of huge fun out of it, and happily it's repeated a lot on Gold, and it's about to be repeated on Drama. So people who haven't seen it before, they might now get to know and love those characters. Hope so. We love them.
And I mean, that shows what a comedy genius John was, because in Only Fools and Horses, you had Dan and Rodney, but then you had Trigger, Denzel. He created all these other characters, and he did the same with the Green Grass. You had Algin Sparrowhawk, you had Mrs. Cakeworthy that never actually cleaned anything for you, just had your tea and biscuits, and it worked so well. And what I liked about the show was we got to see a difference to Boycie and Marlene. Boycie had we'd always known him as a bit of a snob, but this was a different style. I found in the show, he was a little bit more snobby. He wanted this almost royalty about him, and it just works so well. And I loved it. Honestly, it's one of my favourite series. It's up there for me with Only Fools and Horses. There's so many scenes that I can tell you about. Farm Idol, for a start. Do you remember that episode where he's trying to be the farmer of the year and he thinks you're having an affair, but it turns out to be your is it your costumes? He was picking you different outfits. No, he was doing something for Boycie's office.
You probably know the series much better than I do. I never watched myself, so I've forgotten some of it. But it was indeed fun. I think people learned to love Mrs. Cakeworthy. She was so gloriously not doing the job, wasn't she? And all the farmhands were fun. I loved Elgin Sparrowhawk. Ivan Kay was brilliant. I think everybody I thought was it grew and it got I think to better and better. It's so sad we couldn't have got on because I think it would have been something that people would enjoy for many years. Really loved it because of the writing, and it was beautiful. Set in the countryside, it looked jolly nice, didn't it?
And it's fair to say we are, as a nation, missing that traditional family fun comedy. Now, a lot of comedy shows are looking to come back. Now, with John's son, do you think it could ever work where he could write another series? Have there ever been discussions of him potentially bringing Only Fools or the Green Grass back?
Well, there was a time in 2011 when John was still alive, when there was a rumour that we would be doing a Christmas episode of Only Fools, which would feature Rodney throwing a birthday party for Del Boy becoming a pensioner. I think that was the idea, and everybody would be coming back for that party. And it was that year that John was struck down by viral pneumonia, and we lost him, and it's the greatest tragedy. I don't know how much of the script he'd written. Certainly everybody had agreed to do it. And since then, lots of people have talked about whether whether Only Fools could come back. And I've spoken to David about it, and I think it would be a terrible mistake to bring it back. But I do think it would be very interesting to let Jim Sullivan loose on an idea if he had one, because he understood John's basic theory, which was when John was writing Only Fools and Horses, he had elderly people in his life, grandparent generation, and he also had very small children, and he wanted everybody to be able to watch the show together. And that's what I think is missing in the comedy shows now, because you know there are shows aimed at the teenage people and at 30-somethings and at old people. There's very little that's aimed at actually making everybody from 5-year-olds to 95-year-olds laugh. And I'm sure that's part of the reason it's gone on being loved for so long, because it is something, you know, it's like people used to sit down and watch Morecambe and Wise, the whole family, and people sit down and watch Strictly Come Dancing. Those big audiences happen because it's a chance for the whole family, whatever age, to sit down, have a laugh, not be embarrassed by what's on the screen, and just be entertained. And I think Gavin and Stacey does that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'd enjoy the Christmas special for that show. But we got to talk about Still Open All Hours. I was talking to Tim Healy yesterday, and again, that was a show I watched on DVD and I loved it. And when I heard they're bringing it back, it was one of those moments you thought, how are they going to bring this back without Arkwright? It's just not gonna work. And I think what was so clever with that was actually Sir David Jason, when Granville was always this character that was the complete opposite of Arkwright. He wasn't someone who's trying to make money here or make money there. He was just innocent. But as the Still Open All Hours, it's almost like he's become a mini Arkwright. He's doing the hands. He's trying to flog loads of anchovy paste, and he really mimics Arkwright, and it just works. It's one of those genius moments. You watch it and think, I can't believe he's done it again, but he has. This, and it's working so well. And obviously, you've now come on board, which is fantastic. I think for any Only Fools fan to see you and Sir David back together was brilliant. So how did your part in the show come up? Was it something that David spoke to you about, or did you audition?
No, I didn't audition. I was just offered the role, which was very exciting. It was 3 episodes, and this woman appeared in the shop, and with her dark glasses on, having been dumped by her Italian husband. And already, straight away, there she was on the page. And I had these nice little scenes with David. And then suddenly, the romance between Mrs. Rossi and Mr. Newbold came along. And we're still hoping that we might get a Christmas special, or maybe even 2 episodes, to round it off. Because I think Mrs. Rossi and Mr. Newbold need to be going into the sunset in this beautiful new romance. I think it could be really rather lovely.
And I did speak to Tim yesterday about, obviously, one of the iconic things about the show is obviously the shop. Now, I know that's actually the exterior is used, it's a hairdresser's. So when you first actually went to the set and you saw it for yourself, obviously watching it years ago, did you ever kind of look at it and think, wow, this is incredible, like I'm actually here? Did it?
Very, very, I was very excited. I remember, I can't think when it was, but it must have been a very long time ago, probably in the very early 80s. They have those magazines in the hanging up at the shop, on sort of clothes pegs. They're always. Yeah. And one of the episodes with Open All Hours, not Still Open All Hours, there was the front page cover was me on a magazine called Slimmer or Slimming or something, leaping in the air and catching a ball. I thought, I'm famous. I'm in the shop. I'm on the front cover in the shop. And so I used to watch the show a bit just to see if I was going to appear again on one of the magazine covers. No, I was terribly excited to go in, and when you go, and it took me straight back to my childhood, because you've got gobstoppers and flying saucers and all the sweets that I used to have when I was little. It's enchanting. You have to admire the set designers on these shows. I mean, David Hitchcock, who is the designer, his props team, they're fantastic. If you look round the shelves, they're so imaginative with what they do with this. That was the same with Only Fools. Every week, different bits of furniture would appear, because John's theory was, if anybody came into the flat and they liked something, he said, well, no, you can have it, $5 to you. And so all the time the sets could change, and it's the same with the shop. The things on the shelves change all the time, and it's always very witty. It's a pity people can't have a little, a proper browse round the shelves in that shop, because it's amazing.
And with I spoke to Tim yesterday, and he kind of said, it's one of the most experienced cast of any shows in the UK. You've got Sir David, who's had his 80th birthday, and his energy that he displays is just incredible. And I've watched various documentaries and interviews where he says he's got no plan of retiring. I mean, is that the same for you? Is it something you just enjoy so much that retirement's not even an option?
Oh, not there, not being considered at all. No, it was great because I went in and I felt like a baby. You know, there's my lover, Jeffrey Whitehead, is 81. The David's 80. The writer's 90. You know, at 70, I'm really one of the juveniles. So it was great fun, and of course, Bridget Forsyth. Is a huge friend of mine. Sally Lindsay is a great friend of mine. And going in was just like going to a party. And it's filmed at Pinewood, which is 15 minutes from my doors. I live in Windsor. So it's one of the most joyful jobs. I wish we could go on with that forever too.
Now, obviously, Boycie and Marlene, one of the most legendary double acts in TV history. Now, what's it like for you? So when you see John doing another show like Benidorm and becoming a regular, then he sees you doing Still Open All Hours. Is there ever that kind of like, oh, I wish I was, we were together?
I was very jealous of Sherry Houston. When he went off and married somebody else. I was very cross, very angry. No, I still haven't forgiven Sherry Houston. But anyway, no, I have to accept he's got a lot of wives in life and on television. There's no hope.
So what I wanted to do, we've done it with Tim yesterday, we've done it with Martin Clunes in the past, is we play a little game where I ask you some questions about yourself and your own career, and we see how many you get right.
Oh,
So how many episodes of Only Fools and Horses did Marlene appear in?
Not very many. 21?
Yeah.
21?
No, 20.
20.
We'll stick with your original answer. You got that right. You appeared in 2 episodes of Heartbeat, but in which year?
82?
No, it was the year I was born, 1993.
Oh my God, I'm miles out. 1993. And I didn't become a regular. I was very sad about that.
You appeared in an episode of Casualty in 2013, but what was the name of your character?
No idea.
Alice.
Alice.
In which episode of Only Fools and Horses did Del Boy accuse Boycie of killing Marlene and burying her in the garden?
Oh, God knows what it was called. But that's when I'd gone off to have a boob job, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah. It's Sleepless in Peckham, last episode, I believe.
No, failed there.
How many episodes so far have you appeared in Still Open All Hours?
7, 8, 9, 10.
Yes. There you go. We got 2 right so far. You have appeared in Doctors on 3 occasions, playing 3 different characters.
I thought I'd done 4. I've only done 3. Oh,
3.
Okay.
So you get a point for each episode, each character's name that you can give me. So you played 3 characters. What were their names?
I haven't the faintest idea what any of them were. But I know the last one was a complete nutcase. I played Matthew Cottle's mother, and it transpired that as he was growing up, I used to lock him in the broom cupboard and bring men into the kitchen to have sex with them. Can you believe that? The lunchtime show. I mean, really.
Well, it was Rose, Beryl, and Sheila.
Wouldn't have remembered any of them. Although I loved doing it, of course. Don't let me think that I didn't love doing it. Loved it.
What was the name of Boycie and Marlene's farm in the green grass?
Winterdown Farm.
Correct. And last but not least, you played the character Marianne in what TV series?
The Sandbaggers, and it was a very good show. Fantastic. Proper, which you couldn't do now because it was all sort of Cold War thriller stuff. It was a bit like Bond films. It was very exciting.
So you got 4 correct. That's not too bad.
It's not great though.
You didn't quite beat Tim Healy yesterday. He got all but 1 wrong, so he done very well.
Oh, I don't remember the character. I don't remember any of the names of the characters I played on things like Doctors, Holby and Casualty. I remember them well, but I don't remember the characters' names.
I've got to say, so I'm so grateful for you giving me your time. You know I'm a huge fan of the show, but I'm also a huge fan of you as a person. You're always so kind to... I noticed actually at the Sir David Jason event that every single person that came to you for a photograph, you were the only actor I saw actually would say to them, are you happy with the photo? And you'd give them the option to actually look and then have another one if they weren't happy. And you're so generous with your time to people, but also keeping the show alive. So thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that I didn't have my eyes closed and look drunk.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to share this on social media as well and into the appreciation group, and hopefully people will get to love hearing from you in the isolation period.
Thank you for teaching me about Skype. I feel very
Thank you.
A pleasure. Bye, Lewis.